Lawmakers in Mississippi have passed legislation that would basically dictate your sex life, not only if you're in the LGBT community, but if you have the audacity to have sex outside of marriage. Now, at the heart of this issue is basically giving religious individuals and private and public entities the ability to discriminate against you if they have a religious reason for doing so. Let me give you the details. The bill repeatedly states that the state government shall not take any discriminatory action against a person or religious organization for refusing to take part in objectionable marriages, adoptions, or certain other services. In addition to social services such as marriage and adoption, the bill protects any private business who refuses to provide services, accommodations, facilities, goods, or privileges for a purpose related to the solemnization, formation, celebration, or recognition of any marriage based upon or in a manner consistent with a sincerely held religious belief or moral conviction described in Section 2 of this act. That's from the legislation itself, okay? So basically they're saying, if someone wants to discriminate against you and they're stating that they're doing it for religious purposes, well, then they should have the ability to do it.
Mm-hmm. When you started the story and you were talking about how the Mississippi legislators were going to dictate what we do in the bedroom, I was like, oh, I didn't know they ran like that. That sounds like it could get kinky. Like, yeah. Okay, now this is what you do next. Okay, all right, okay. But it turns out they don't want to have any fun at all. No. So now people get to decide what is literally, quote, an objectionable marriage. Right? So you might find a gay marriage objectionable, but you might find many other marriages objectionable. You might find one where they had premarital sex, or they're two different races, or somebody's marrying a Muslim, and you say, hey, you know what, I find that objectionable. Well, if you're in Mississippi, they find a lot of things objectionable. And then Section 2 talks about sexual relations that are properly reserved to such a marriage, right?
Yep.
So now we're in everybody's sex life. So if you had any sex, well, you didn't. If it happened before the marriage, if it happened in a previous marriage, by the way, that's also against the Bible. If it happened outside of the marriage, that's also against the Bible.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, we're knee deep in your sex life, and not in a fun way.
It's amazing how much these bills are just like
I got that.
knee deep.
That sounds
this
German.
is just the right to discriminate, right? It's like it's like a pro-discrimination bill, which is essentially what you could call it. It's called Protecting Freedom of Conscience from Government Discrimination Act.
It's funny because they're flipping, it's not literally funny, but they're flipping the discrimination laws that we have now on its head, because they're essentially saying, oh, all these gay people are worried about us discriminating against them. Well, we're worried about being discriminated against as religious individuals, right? But no, you're not being discriminated against. You get to practice whatever lifestyle you want to practice, but you don't get the right to discriminate against others because you don't like their lifestyle, right? And so it's not like this legislation is being interpreted as something that could impact people who are having premarital sex. It explicitly states it in the legislation. So let me give you that portion of it. Graphic number 10. Section 2, the sincerely held religious beliefs or moral convictions protected by this act are the belief or conviction that A, marriage is or should be recognized as the union of one man and one woman. B, sexual relations are properly reserved to such a marriage. And C, male, man, or female, woman refer to an individual's immutable biological sex as objectively determined by anatomy and genetics at time of birth. So basically they're like, yeah, all you transgender people, you guys can fuck off too.
Yeah. Or you can't fuck off.
Well,
Basically,
not in the way that they don't like.
They're basically saying threesomes are out.
Yeah, that's the least of it. But,
Yeah.
but that is
I mean,
way
I love how he's concerned about the threesomes. He's like, oh shit, what's
You
gonna
got
happen?
literal
Threesomes in
with it.
Mississippi.
It's just it's so anti-gay, it's anti-trans. I mean, Mississippi, come on, just
Well,
like,
wait,
give up. You
let-
know what I'm saying?
Yes, that's
Give
true.
up.
I had a comment on it. What's the state that doesn't allow sodomy? Is it this state too?
No, so first of all, there's been a lot of different...
and how would you even get busted for that? Someone comes and goes, hey, what orifice you in? Hey, get out! I mean,
So that literally
seriously,
happened.
Yeah.
that happens?
Yes.
That's not a joke. That
That's-
actually happens.
So
Remind me
that's-
why I don't go there.
Okay, so there's a number of states that have proposed it. One recently passed it. In Virginia, a guy ran for governor on anti-sodomy, meaning
The
that
dumbest thing ever.
That
That's
literally-
the dumbest thing ever.
it literally outlaws blowjobs.
Yep.
Okay, straight
Blowjob's not sodomy.
It is.
It is.
No, it's a mouth
What?
hug.
It is?
That's a. I'm sorry, I got.
Did you say mouth love?
No, it's a mouth hug.
Oh,
no,
mouth
it's a blowjob. That's not.
yes.
How is that sodomy?
Sodomy
Sodomy was
is-
always the butt.
No, sodomy is oral and anal. Okay,
I didn't. I gotta look. I'm sorry, I didn't do my research.
Is that the Gamora part?
This is so dumb.
Yes.
Can I say something and then go back to this? As a news organization, you guys do a lot more news than I ever know about, but I don't know enough about the news. I mean, how is this even fucking possible with like ISIS? I mean, we have so much bigger shit happening in the world, and we're worried about this. Like,
Well, that's the incredible thing. These are the same people that draft legislation like this are the same ones that'll fearmonger about ISIS. So they talk about how ISIS is the biggest problem. We need to solve it right away. We need to go after them. And then they're sitting together and conspiring on ways of how they can dictate our personal lives.
ISIS would be so into this act, by the way. Like,
Totally.
ISIS wants to pass. They probably
ISIS
already
is knee
passed
deep in this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, have you guys created a religion yet? Like a non-religion?
Do
Have you
your
guys?
religion. Live your life however you see fit, as long as you're not harming others.
yes. See, this is
Well,
my.
but let's actually make it a religion, right?
Yeah.
Or I mean, I know, you know, there's atheism here, and that's fine, I think. But like, I don't get how this is about religious freedom at all. Like, I'm opposed to Crocs and mullets. You know what I'm saying? So let's just start an anti-Crocs and mullets
Yes.
religion, and
Yes.
you know,
Hipsters
but like
by
I'm not.
Beechwood. Yes, we could get some of those to outlaw
Exactly.
that.
So, no, but I wonder, like, there's such a big game talked in this country about freedom. Freedom, freedom, freedom. And yet, except when it comes to actually just my personal, very specific, very singular, very conservative interpretation of my religion,
Yep.
that's when I get to dictate what happens with all y'all and in your life
also-
and in your bedroom. Is this legal? Like, with the Supreme Court ruling, can a state legislature pass something like this?
So it'll have to go to the Supreme Court, and it'll depend on who replaces Scalia.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Right. Then that's scary.
And so in the case that I was referring to when Jamie asked, what do they do, bust in? Well, that was the Supreme Court decision that outlawed anti-sodomy laws in the first place, right? And so that was in a Texas case where cops literally busted in and caught somebody in mid-act. And they're like,
amazing.
okay, they're
Was it
like,
a man and a man?
How they were like,
or a
that's
man
the
and a man?
sodomy house over there.
and
like,
so
what?
they're like, okay, there it is. We found it. We masturbated to it, and then we arrested you, right?
Wait, let him go a
And
little
so-
longer. Get him.
Right.
I mean, it's terrible.
And then the court said, no, you can't tell people what to do in their bedrooms. Now the guy who was running for governor of Virginia, wanted to do it anyway, even though the Supreme Court was against it. Now, in terms of this is a very amazing law because it says, as you pointed out earlier, Francesca, it says you can discriminate.
Yep.
Right? So that would be a unique case for the Supreme Court to look at. Is a state allowed to pass a law where you can discriminate? Usually they look at laws where they say you're not allowed to discriminate and see what the parameters of that are. So this would be given the parameters of a pro-discrimination law.
I know, but look at their wording. The way that they're framing it is that this is an anti-discrimination law because they're trying to protect religious people from discrimination. They're trying to protect religious people's from discrimination if they choose to discriminate against others. Like, that's the way it really works.
That's an interesting reverse manipulation.
Exactly.
They kind of have a point, but yes, I totally agree with us. But it's interesting how they could word that.
Yeah. So last thing is
That's
that
scary.
think about how this is going to operate in real life. Because so one way is easy. Two guys come in to get a marriage license. They go, no, I'm not going to give it to you. The state gives me the ability to discriminate against you. Because if I didn't, you'd be discriminating against me by getting a marriage license. Okay, bizarre, right?
Right.
But also the state gives you the ability when a man and a woman come in to go, all right, tell me about your sex life. Okay, literally, it gives them. So did you ever give him a handy? Okay, did you ever give him, as Jamie said, a mouth hug?
Maybe you need to go to the doctor and see if that hymen's intact. And if it is, well, maybe then I'll marry you guys.
So now this comes from the people who say they're for small government.
God.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's exactly right. And it drives me crazy. They're not in favor of small government. The only time they're in favor of small government is when it comes to deregulating businesses and corporations that have a vested interest to make as much money as possible without dealing with regulations and things
All
like
other
that.
times,
That's it.
totally in favor of a giant government, whether it's the military or it's cases like this where they want to get into all of our sex lives, right? So if they were really for small government, believe in freedom and get the hell out of our lives.